You're listening to the Future Tech Health Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Until I reached age 40, I never realized the obvious, that we all have medical issues, or we at least have a family member or close relation that had, has, or will have them in the future. Medicine and biological systems are the final frontier. Until we've conquered death, figured out how life began, cured cancer, and understood our purpose in the universe, there's a heck of a lot to talk about when it comes to our health. Future Tech Health means I'll be covering futuristic topics that are actually already in clinical trials, or even starting to appear on shelves or by prescription, or available for your own use. We dive deep into stem cells, CRISPR-Cas9, the science of sleep, epigenetics, medical testing, cancer, ketogenic diets, stem cells, aging, regenerative medicine, and more. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a serious medical problem. Remember, however, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and share it with friends. Thank you. Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech and Future Tech Health podcast, and I have Dr. Meghna Thacker. She's a thyroid expert and author of Amazon's bestseller. It's called 7 Steps to Heal Your Thyroid. She's also the host of a talk show on Facebook where she interviews guests who have the mission to educate people regarding health and wellness. She owns a supplement line, and she's into a lot of different stuff, naturopathic doctor, etc. So, Dr. Thacker, how you doing?
Very good, Richard. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah, if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about your background. Why the focus on thyroid? What led you in this direction?
Absolutely. Personally, I have a history of Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism, and actually that went undiagnosed for years. I am born and raised in Mumbai, India, and since I was a little girl, I had irregular cycles. I used to be the heavy one, in my class. My friends used to eat, and I used to hardly eat and still gain weight. I would lose my hair, and I always wondered what's wrong. And I dealt with that for a long time, and I moved here to go to naturopathic medical school. When I was doing my preceptorship, I did my comprehensive blood work, and those thyroid antibodies were skyrocketing. So by then, my symptoms had gotten so worse with the thyroid condition that I was actually falling asleep while I was driving. That actually alarmed me that I need to do something. And when I did my blood work, that's what was found. And since then, I've been after, a way to find a solution to this problem.
Yeah, you got to kill yourself. Yeah, that's very dangerous and scary. I understand. Huh.
Yeah.
So you had these issues for years, and then you said your antibodies were going up higher and higher on blood work. So what was the next step for you? Were you a doctor at this time, or what were you doing career-wise?
No, I was a preceptor at that time, and soon to graduate from the naturopathic college here in Tempe, Arizona. One of my mentors, Dr. Thomas Cruzel, initially helped me. I used some formulas that helped me with lowering my antibodies. I was also then actually planning to have babies. So I wanted to make sure that's a very important part of fertility. And so that's when I started working with him. I was not on thyroid medication at that point. But I conceived my baby. And when he was born and when I was nursing him, that's when I started seeing the difference in how I was feeling with my energy, not being able to pump enough milk and all of that. That's when I realized, okay, we probably need another step further. And I had to go on thyroid medication. I do choose the natural medication of the thyroid. And but not only that, that was one thing. What led me to this, like to feel the best, I tried many different things. And following the principles of naturopathic medicine, always keeping that in mind, helped me come up with the protocol, 7 Steps to Heal Your Thyroid. I worked and tested this protocol on myself and my patients for the 10 years, after which I decided to publish it in a book.
Okay, so were you able to mitigate all the effects of Hashimoto's and low thyroid? Or, I guess maybe go through it. So how good of a position are you in now? What are have you lost weight? Do you feel better? Are you not sleepy anymore? Tell me a little bit about, if you don't mind, your current personal status. How good is it now?
I would love to share that because I think women like me, suffer with this. And yes, at this point, I'm able to, live a great life. I have good energy. My hair is grown. People wonder how it's grown so long, actually. It's nice and healthy. I've lost the weight. So, yeah. So I'm feeling pretty good right now. And it's my mission to help all these women with their thyroid condition and not having to suffer for 20 years like I did, without even knowing that I had this condition.
Well, I can tell you, I know several women actually that have some thyroid issues. And what they're hearing from traditional doctors is, oh, well, you're in range, so you're fine. And you just need to exercise more. You just need to, get your head in the game and all that. And they're being dismissed and told that they're crazy or nothing's wrong with them. And they feel horrible. So I know that there's a lot of women out there that, need a doctor that will even do the tests that they need. A lot of them, they fight them on the tests. They just want to do maybe TSH and that's it. So if someone has a problem, what do they do? How do they get the care they need?
Absolutely. You are so right, Richard. I go through this every day in the office when patients come to me and say that they are suffering with these symptoms. Oh, I've had my thyroid tested. It was fine. And yes, that's right. They only look at the screening test, which is the TSH, which has a huge range. But that is not enough information at all. So I always run a comprehensive thyroid panel looking at the blood work. And Hashimoto's is considered the most common reason for one to have hypothyroidism. So I always check for the thyroid antibodies as well, including the free T3, free T4, total T3, total T4, which gives me a comprehensive picture. And yes, the labs provide a wide range. There is a normal range and then there is an optimal range. So my aim is to help patients get to those optimal numbers.
And does that always mean middle of the range? Or could optimal be high for someone and low for someone else?
So optimal is different based on what we are looking at. In regards to the TSH, when the TSH is low, it's better than when it's high. So that's sometimes a little confusing to the patients because when it's high, they think they have hyperthyroidism, but that's wrong. So I explained to them that we want the TSH ideally less than 1. But then we are also looking at the free T3 and the free T4. I also explained to them that the thyroid gland produces the T4 hormone, but in the periphery, in our organs, especially the liver, the conversion of T4 to T3 happens, and T3 is the actual active thyroid hormone that our cells utilize and then produce energy. So the free T3 is the most important test for me, and I aim for the level to be close to 3.5 or a little bit more than that. That is our aim.
So what are some of the interesting skews or unusual things you've seen when people have thyroid issues? Like, would someone have very high reverse T3, or would it just be that they have high, antibody counts, or what kind of unusual things have you seen in labs?
Absolutely. So let me share a case of a patient where when she came in to see me, her thyroid numbers per se, looking at her TSH, the T3, T4 levels, everything was fine, but her antibodies were super high in 3000s and 4000s. I checked for the anti-TPO antibody and the anti-thyroglobulin antibody. And in general, she has a very positive attitude. She's like, no, I don't have many symptoms. I am fine. So I'm like, why are these antibodies this high for you? And I believe every patient is different and everyone has a different root cause. So that is what I am going after to find out, to find a solution. So, of course, in her case, we ran a few tests, including a GI map test to look at her microbiome. We did some food sensitivity tests because her GI symptoms were more prominent, like gas and bloating and cramping, which she didn't have a reason for. So I decided to look at her gut. And we found many things that came up, and I treated her according to that. By treating her gut, we saw that the next time when she did her blood work, her antibody levels were down, and she was feeling so much better. It was night and day for her.
Oh, really? What is, for her, what was feeling better mean? What did she tell you?
So basically, she felt much more energy. She was getting much more benefits from her workout. Her hair and skin were doing much better. And of course, her GI symptoms went away. Like she was not feeling cramping, um, constipated, or nausea from the foods that she was eating. So there was severe inflammation in her gut. By doing a food sensitivity test, we got rid of all the foods that may be causing that, and also put her on a protocol, a gut healing protocol, basically, to restore the healthy flora, to heal her gut lining. And when she repeated her GI test, the results were incredible as well. So not only was she feeling better symptom-wise, but on paper, we could see that in her blood work, her thyroid antibodies had reduced. Also, her all the inflammation in the gut that was first seen in her GI map test had gone away.
Yeah, I realized is it true that the conversion of T4 to T3 happens in the gut and is mediated by gut bacteria doing it?
So, yes, the conversion of T4 to T3 happens in the peripheral organs. One of the main organs for that is the liver. So the liver health is extremely important. If the liver is congested, if somebody has fatty liver, then that conversion is reduced. So actually in my book, there's chapter 4 where I talk about detoxification, helping the liver to work better. And I recommend my patients to do a detox program at least twice a year in spring and fall. Those are the best times to do it. So that way, we are helping the liver, giving it what it needs to open up those detoxification pathways, so the conversion of T4 to T3 works really well.
Well, okay, so what's involved in well, actually, let's say a little bit more. So conversion happens only in the liver, or where does it happen as science understands it right now?
Yes, it happens in the different cells of the body, and the liver, liver is the main place that it happens. And then detoxification does involve helping the liver work better, but opening all the channels of detoxification, where we are opening the emunctories. So one is eliminating the waste from the urine. They're eliminating the toxins in their stool, basically sweating it out through the skin. The skin is the largest organ of detoxification. So we have to support all of these organs when one is going through a detox.
So what's involved in a detox? Can you go into some of the details?
Absolutely. So when one is going through a detox, I use my 14-day detox plan with them. So it basically has ingredients which have herbs that help the liver detoxify, then it has gut healing ingredients in them as well. Plus it has proteins. So amino acids, it's a plant-based protein powder as well. And it has the micronutrients, which is the vitamins and minerals, because all of this is essential to help the process of detoxification.
So how long does the detox process take? And, is it expensive? Do you have to buy a bunch of stuff? I mean, what are some details on it?
Okay. So basically, I tell patients that for the 14 days that they are doing my detox program, they receive this detox drink that they are going to use, 1 scoop twice a day. Along with that, they are following a clean diet, so they are removing any processed sugars and additional processed foods. Basically, they're eating pretty clean while on the diet, things that are easier to digest. And they're drinking a lot of water. So we even talk about like mental detoxification and all of that as well. But detoxification is a process which happens all the time, and our organs do that all the time. So the 14 days that we are dedicating to it is we are giving the body that time to heal and detox, and putting one into the practice of eating well and all of that. But this is something that is a lifestyle change that one should continue doing anyways. We want to be healthy and continue to do it anyways.
So what's I don't know, I don't want to give away the whole book, but what are just basically the steps that people need to go through to heal their thyroid?
Yes. Let me say what the steps are. So the first step one is understanding your thyroid, where I'm educating the person about how the thyroid hormone works, where it is formed, what is needed for its formation, what are the tests that we talked about before to look for, because I don't want them to be just sent away by their doctors saying that nothing is wrong with them when they are actually having the symptoms. So I'm educating the person about what the thyroid involves and what tests to look for. And then in step two, I get into the naturopathic treatments, what all can be done diet wise, supplement wise, um, looking at the botanical medicine, homeopathy, everything that helps the thyroid work better. I also recommend patients to do a micronutrient analysis via a blood test because every patient is different. A micronutrient test helps to find out what nutrients that patient may be deficient in. It's an intracellular report rather than a standard blood test that a general lab does. So, in this micronutrient analysis, the blood is sent to this lab where their white blood cells are grown for 3 weeks, and then a report is generated, which is about 10 pages long, and it's individualized for the patient. So, for example, when I did mine, I was deficient in 3 different nutrients. So, I exactly know what to use and how much to use to replace those deficiencies. So, when I help them at that cellular level, then it helps their thyroid to work better. So, that's one of the things I do. And then going on to step number three is healing the gut. So, as I was telling you about the GI map and the microbiome testing, which is very, very important. And Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disorder. And actually, our gut is the 80% of where our immunity resides. So, it makes sense that, having the good microbiota will help the thyroid function in that way. And now it's very interesting, actually. The research is showing that, they are correlating the organisms that are found in the gut and what one may be prone to. So, for example, like patients who have Hashimoto's, because Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition, are more prone to the other autoimmune diseases, one of them being rheumatoid arthritis. So, when I did my GI map test, that's the organism related to rheumatoid arthritis, which was seen in my gut. So, going on a gut healing protocol and getting rid of that helps me probably prevent rheumatoid arthritis. So, I find that very fascinating information. And in the
so it means you were predisposed to it, and you likely would have gotten it over time, or you had it at a low level. Or what do you mean?
Exactly, that's a possibility. That's what the scientists are working on to find out, like what organisms are present leading to what chronic diseases. Like patients with diabetes may have certain organisms. Patients with rheumatoid arthritis may have something. So they are finding these links. So I think that data is going to be extremely helpful to doctors, and it helps me because I believe in prevention, and that's one of the principles of naturopathic medicine. And if I'm able to prevent one from developing a chronic disease by healing their gut, I think that's great. So
yeah, no, it is.
So,
What's
yeah.
How often do people have to take thyroid supplementation if they have low thyroid activity or Hashimoto's, or are you much what percentage of the time are you able to help people heal themselves without medication?
That really depends on every patient. If I catch them at an early stage where their antibodies are not very elevated, I've had many patients who don't need any medication at all and they are healed by just being on the supplementation. But when I get a patient who's been on the medication for years and have chronic Hashimoto's, then it is much harder because the body is used to that extra help from the thyroid medication.
And okay, and what about do you work with people that have had their thyroid removed due to cancer or overgrowth or other reasons, and how are they different?
Yes. So I do work with patients with all types of the thyroid. I do not treat thyroid cancer, of course, but patients who've had it removed, yes, who are on thyroid medication under my care. So I definitely help those patients. And yes, there are a lot of patients who come with me with benign nodules. So the nodules on the thyroid has become a very common condition that I see in the practice as well. A lot of times the benign nodules are related to hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's particularly. And usually by, correcting the thyroid by working on the different uh, things that I do with the 7 steps, it actually helps to shrink those nodules. So we keep a track on that by doing ultrasounds. I do not order thyroid ultrasounds for all of my patients, but on as needed basis, basically. If one is, you know, having nodules or has a history of nodules or has severe Hashimoto's, I always recommend that they have a thyroid ultrasound.
And what about if someone's on just T4 only, like Synthroid or levothyroxine, and they're not tolerating it well? And do you switch people
Right.
to, mixtures of T4, T3, T2, and, maybe talk a little bit about the dynamics there?
Absolutely. So, Richard, I see that in practice all the time where patients are on T4 medication and come to see me with all the symptoms of hypothyroidism. They say that they are getting no relief because their doctor keeps increasing their dose, but they are still having all the symptoms. And yes, when I run their thyroid panel, the number that's low, my favorite one, the free T3, is closest to its lowest range, probably. A lot of times that happens. So I address that in a few different ways. Of course, as a choice of medication, I do prefer the natural glandular medication like Armour Thyroid, Nature Thyroid, the newer one, which is NP Thyroid. If they choose to be on synthetic medication, then if they are on T4, I may add T3 together with it and then monitor them. So the other way to do it is when they are on T4 medication, I use my formula with them, which is the thyroid balance, and that helps to convert the T4 to T3. So it is a combination of certain minerals and botanical medicine that helps that conversion. I also talk to them about helping the liver work better and do the detoxification to help that conversion.
Okay. Just like a little bit more info here, but I've heard some doctors say, "Oh, Armor, they compound it, and it's not, it's pig thyroid, and you never know what you're going to get." And is that true, or is Armor robust enough, and these other alternatives
Yeah.
robust enough to work?
That is not true, actually. Armour Thyroid is the oldest medication. It was like even before levothyroxine and Synthroid came into the market. And, with the um, Synthroid being the second most prescribed medication in the US, it's a huge competition with Armour Thyroid. But I see fantastic results myself on Armour Thyroid. I personally am on that medication, and I see it clinically in my practice as well.
Okay. And you haven't seen any issue in terms of the effects that it's not variable. You think it's controlled
Oh,
and
no,
manufactured, so it's pretty precise, or is it?
absolutely. It is very
Okay.
precise, absolutely very precise in every way and very standardized actually so I don't see any issue with that. And of course every patient is different. A lot of my patients, most of them do well on the natural thyroid prescriptions. But yeah, there are a few handful that may do better with the synthetic, and I meet each patient at where they are and then we individualize the protocol for them.
Have you dealt with people that have been on Synthroid, let's say, for years, and all of a sudden they're having problems with it? Do you see that it may work for a while and then stop for some people?
Yes, it does. I see that a lot. And at that point, when we convert them over to Armour Thyroid, I've seen really good results.
Why do you think that happens? That someone will tolerate it for a while and then all of a sudden, it stops working for them?
First of all, I think Synthroid, first of all, is being synthetically made and having just the T4 molecule. While naturally, our thyroid gland, we have the T1, T2, T3, and T4. So it's the process of iodination, that makes the thyroid hormones. So when we are getting it naturally from a natural source, like an animal's thyroid gland, which is similar to ours, it's in a way bioidentical to our bodies. So our body accepts it's much better. And then our body doesn't have to convert that hard to convert that T4 to T3. So because the T4 being different molecule by itself, synthetically made, if we put a more natural one, which is identical to what our body makes, I think we respond much better to it.
I don't know if you can characterize this, but how much effort do you think the liver puts into converting the T4 to T3? Perhaps that, it puts a strain on the liver, and if it's happening for years and years and years, maybe it's compromising liver function slowly over time to have only Synthroid versus a mixture.
I don't think it's a big deal actually for the liver. I know our liver is our organ we really need to pamper, because any toxins that we get from our environment, any medication that one may easily pop, just like an ibuprofen, the liver really works hard to process all of this, So as long as we are, making good choices and all of that, it's not an extra added thing on the liver to convert the T4 to T3. That's the natural function of it, But I would say adding extra things that make it work harder, that is something one should try to probably avoid.
Right. Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, I've seen I have thyroid issues. That's why I know something about this. But I've seen the field is dominated by women. Do you see a lot of male patients, or is it mostly women? And what's your thoughts why?
Yeah. So basically, women are considered 5 to 8 times, prone to hypothyroidism compared to men. And my practice mostly is of women, women's care. I do thyroid balancing. I do their female hormone balancing, adrenal balancing. I like to look at the whole picture, actually. And there are certain times in a woman's life when this issue is, like in my case, during nursing is when it really showed up. I had that underlying thing for years, but there were certain times, like stressful times, that exaggerated the hypothyroidism. So when a woman goes through pregnancy, which is a huge physiological process to her body, giving birth, nursing, menopause, those are the times that I really diagnose thyroid conditions a lot.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense with those big hormonal changes. Yeah.
Right.
So
right.
what, unfortunately not everyone can see you. So what are some resources for people for people listening that suspect that they may have potentially thyroid issues? Should they start with your book, or what do you recommend?
Absolutely. So I would encourage everyone to read The 7 Steps to Heal Your Thyroid. It's a comprehensive guide, gets into all the details of the 7 steps. And for anyone who is having low energy or difficulty with their weight, there's a lot of information. So even if you don't have a thyroid condition but have certain symptoms, I encourage you to read that. And you can visit my website, which is www.meghnathacker.com. That's my first and last name.com. And there you can have different resources. I have a blog. I have my social media where I stay in touch with everyone and share information over there. I host a Facebook talk show, and you can see my line of supplements. And I'm here to help you feel better and feel like yourself.
That's great. Well, Dr. Thacker, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Richard. It was a pleasure.
You're listening to the Future Tech Health Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Until I reached age 40, I never realized the obvious, that we all have medical issues, or we at least have a family member or close relation that has, or will have them in the future. Medicine and biological systems are the final frontier. Until we've conquered death, figured out how life began, cured cancer, and understood our purpose in the universe, there's a heck of a lot to talk about when it comes to our health. Future Tech Health means I'll be covering futuristic topics that are actually already in clinical trials, or even starting to appear on shelves or by prescription, or available for your own use. We dive deep into stem cells, CRISPR-Cas9, the science of sleep, epigenetics, medical testing, cancer, ketogenic diets, stem cells, aging, regenerative medicine, and more. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a serious medical problem. Remember, however, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and share it with friends. Thank you.